It's not just because he's a really nice guy and a great dad and a good friend and a good time to be around if you happen to get to be out with him once in a while. Although, as one says at Passover, Dainu, it would have been enough. It would have been enough, right? And frankly, it's not just because he's a great congressman, which he is. Taking the lead on housing issues and foreclosure issues, on credit card issues, on lead issues, for safety for our kids, on making sure, as a leader, that we all get out and vote, and we get all our friends to get out and vote, we get all our family to get out and vote in this most important of election years. It's not just because he's a great congressman and a great Democrat, although, again, Dainu, it would have been enough if he were merely those things. But one of the reasons I am truly grateful that Keith Ellison was born and on this planet is because I learned so much from him. And it's not that I learned from him as, an elected official who's on the city council looking up to her congressman, which I do every day. It's not that. It's because I'm a human being. And it's one of the things we do with each other is we learn from each other. And one of the best things that I learned from Keith Ellison is how to lead. Leadership isn't about an election certificate, although an election certificate indicates some kind of leadership capacity. Leadership isn't about command, although sometimes as a leader one does command a situation if it requires it. Leadership is about judgment.
Yes.
Leadership is about knowing whether or not to command. Leadership is about knowing whether or not to seek that election certificate or not. Judgment and leadership are about knowing what to do with that election certificate if you have it. But it's knowing what to do when you don't have one too. And what I have learned from Keith Ellison is not only that leadership is about that judgment. It's about the judgment of when to lead people and when to follow people. That is hard-worn and hard-won, and it often comes out of trial, and it often comes out as fighting. And we're hearing a lot this year about candidates and elected officials who've made this mistake or done this thing or done that thing. And frankly, I don't want a leader who hasn't made a mistake, because that's a leader who hasn't taken a risk, and that's a leader who hasn't learned very much from of a vision that we all share. That's what I've learned from Keith Ellison. And using your judgment in a vision we all share is not about whether or not you're elected, but I know that I want my congressman to have that kind of judgment and that kind of leadership. And I want him to be able to lead, and I also want him to be able to follow. And I want him to use his judgment to know when to do which. Because this man follows us, but he uses his judgment about how to do that and when to do that. But he listens and he follows. And that is one of many reasons I am glad that we are here today to celebrate Keith Ellison.